spring, everybody. Welcome to the spring kickoff of another What's Growin On season. I'm Jayne Spooner. I'm a University of Minnesota Master Gardener here in Rice County, and welcome once again. And it's that time of year. I'm kind of looking out the window as I'm taping this, and I'm noticing some rain showers come through. So as they say, you know, April showers bring May flowers, but I think we've kind of caught up on that rain thing, you know, from the drought last year. So hopefully it'll start to dry up and the weather will start to warm up and we can get out there and get happy digging in our gardens. So today's episode is, you're gonna probably think I'm just doing a repeat of what I did last year around this time, and that was about seed trials. I kind of call it my Groundhog's Day, you know, segment, but it is talking about the seed trials that the University of Minnesota Extension Service does every year. They have been doing these seed trials since 1982, and what they do is they pick 6 vegetables, 2 flowers, and sometimes if they might throw in an herb there, but this year it's the 6 vegetables and 6 flowers. And what they do is they give seeds to Master Gardener groups across the state of Minnesota, from all the way up in Crookston, Grand Rapids, and all the way down south here in the Faribault, you know, area to Waseca. And some are done with local Master Gardeners. We have some, you know, extension areas that have like experimental stations that they do these in. And so what they do is they give them these seeds and then they trial them in their gardens. So like, for instance, Master Gardeners have the ability of doing these seed trials in their own home gardens. Here in Rice County, we do them at our teaching gardens, and we've done a segment there where we visited the teaching gardens. So those will be, once it warms up, those will be planted, so you'll be able to actually go down there and see them. They're planted in community gardens. Sometimes Master Gardeners will sponsor community gardens. And even if you go or a frequent visitor to the Arboretum up in Chanhassen, that is where the University of Minnesota Extension Service has some offices out of, and then has this huge arboretum. They also conduct those seed trials up there as well. So there's many ways that you can take a look at it. And once, you know, all the results come in, then they tabulate them. So these are actually what they trialed last year in 2022, and all those results have come in at this time, usually about January, February. There's a list that's produced. Now these aren't always new things that are coming out on the market. They're looking at heirloom varieties, seeds that are saved from generation to generation. If you actually hear people talking about seed vaults, that they can find, if they find seeds, they have found seeds like in crypts and tombs and have been able to make them viable again, and they will keep them in these, you know, temperature controlled seed vaults to see if it's something that they can produce again. These are, they're looking for varieties with high yield promise, ease of growing, space, especially space saving nowadays. Not everybody wants those huge gardens. I'm like that. I have 3 raised beds. That's more than enough for my husband and I, but it gives me the opportunity to maybe try some more fun things. And some of the things when they're trialed, the things that they're looking for are, how's the flavor? How disease and insect tolerant are they? I mean, there's so many diseases, you know, from powdery mildew to verticulum wilt, Japanese beetles, you know, squash bugs. There's a whole gamut of things that are going on. So they're looking to see that resistance, because people don't want to use chemicals in their gardens. They want a more natural, you know, so they're not ingesting those chemicals into their food. The productivity, you know, is it going to be a one and done kind of thing, or is it going to be something that produces or blooms, you know, from, you know, a long time during the season? And most importantly, germination rate. You know, seeds are expensive, and they want to make sure that when you buy that packet of 10 seeds, that 10 of those sprout for you, so that you have the most abundance for your garden. So those are the things that they look for. So without further ado, I'm going to show you the winners of what we have this season. And like I said, there's some fun vegetables, some that I've never planted and might try this year. If I can find the seed, which, you know, a lot of mail order sites have this, because you know, when you start getting into gardening like I have, you know, and I realize that not every garden center can have everything that's on the market. I get lots of garden catalogs, and I just like am amazed at the number of varieties of things that are out there. So without further ado, here are the winners. So we're gonna start off with the Wawa Napa cabbage. It is one of the earliest producing Chinese cabbages on the market. It only gets 9 inches tall and about 5 inches wide. So for the smaller gardener, this is really just perfect, you know, for your garden. It's got a sweet, tender crunch. If you're familiar with Chinese cabbage, it's a little bit different than, you know, a regular large head cabbage. It's a little bit more compact of a head, and it's not round, it's more of an oblong shape. It's great for single servings because, again, just the small nature of it. And like I said, good for smaller garden spaces. Now, if you're a kimchi fan, they recommend using this, or just dice it up with some carrots, some chicken, or some pork. Get out the wonton wrappers and make yourself some really great egg rolls with some fresh grown ingredients. Then we have the Brandy Master Red Tomato. This is the strain of the classic brandy wine. If you've ever planted tomatoes and you go into the store and you see the brandy wine, that's kind of an heirloom variety, and they're well known for being a really big tomato, and they're not always deep red. Sometimes they can be more a little pinkish, but these get fruits to about 1 pound, so these are really nice eating and slicing tomatoes. They've got a firm and juicy flesh, and they are packed full of flavor. You know, I'm looking at this thinking, I'm looking forward, my mouth is watering. BLTs, that is our favorite summertime meal around here. We'll eat it 2 to 3 times a week, just because we know that the only time we do BLTs at our house is when we have fresh tomatoes from the garden. Another one of my favorite veggies is, of course, cucumbers, and this is the tasty green Burpless Cucumber. Now, this is a really long cucumber. It grows like 18 to 20 inches. So I'm kind of thinking nice slicing for salads, or just slicing for a veggie tray, or if you're into spiralizing. I've seen some recipes where they spiralize a cucumber and then just make a nice, you know, vinegar sauce for it, and so it makes kind of a fun salad. You know, they say you eat with your eyes. And it's burpless. You know, how many times you hear people say, can't eat cucumbers anymore, acid reflux, you know, indigestion, I just burp. So these will keep you from burping. And sometimes cucumbers can get a little bitter. This one, you know, claims that there's no bitterness, and it's very crisp and juicy. And the nice thing too, it's an early producer. Sometimes you just are anxious to get those vegetables, so this one's going to be a little earlier producer, and it's going to tolerate the high temps and humidity. Sometimes if it gets really humid, your cucumber plants can get some of that powdery mildew. And if you want some space saving, you know, sometimes cucumbers in gardens, I remember my grandmother had a specific space where she would put in her cucumbers because she did a lot of canning. So she would actually you know, grow these huge vines all over, and you could pick cucumbers for days on end. But you can actually put these on a trellis or some stakes, which makes it for easier picking for you as well. So that's another advantage to this. And then we have the Daikon Bravo radish. Again, talking about people and how they eat and how they perceive food, is that we eat with our eyes, and just adding something with this purple on it, and this ranges from this purple to a white with purple streaks. And it's great fresh, great in salads. It's good for spring and summer sowing. Sometimes these don't do well. Radishes don't do well in this midsummer. They're more of a cool season crop, but you can do a second sowing in the summer. So buy a couple packets of seeds so you can have it all day long, all summer long. And then what about slicing this up and dicing it up and julienning up and adding it to the Wawa cabbage, and make a pot of kimchi if you're, you know, into that kind of a salad. Now, I've never really tried eggplant, but one of them that came out well was the Niagara large purple eggplant. And it's a spineless plant, so there's, it's not bony, it's not stringy, and it does have heavy yield. So if you are, an eggplant eater, this is a great, because it's a heavy producer, and it sets fruit under all kinds of conditions. And, so if you're an eggplant parmesan, just slice it up however you make it, or you just take and put it in the oven and cut it in half, oil it down, put it in the oven, bake it, and then pull out the flesh, and you can make all kinds of dips. The one I've always thought would be interesting to try was a dip called the baba ganoush, so along with some naan bread or whatever. So again, and it's pretty, again, eating with your eyes. If you've never tried okra, we've got the Clemson spineless okra. I've had jambalaya, I've had gumbo, I actually had deep fried okra one time where they sliced it up and threw it in some beer batter and deep fried. Well, who doesn't like deep fried things, So anyway, this one is one of the more popular varieties. It's got a high yield of pods, and it adds really, like I said, wonderful flavor to gumbos, jambalaya, and soups, and even some stir fries. So if you're into doing some stir fries, throw in some of the okra, throw in some of the, Wawa cabbage, even, cook up some of those daikon radishes. That's kind of the new thing I'm seeing, where they're actually kind of like lightly pan frying radishes. So the next, now we've gotten through all the veggies, so we're all nice and healthy and eating all those great veggies, but we always have to have a little feast for the flower gardener, and this is the Gremlin double mix China Aster mix. These are easily grown from seed, which is very nice. And as you can see, these flowers are large and they're very colorful, and look how rich this purple and magenta and pink. And the nice thing about this is it's very attractive and very fragrant, so it attracts pollinators like crazy. So if you have a small pollinator garden and you want some good pops of color, the other reason to put it in your gardens is it's excellent for cutting to bring in bouquets into your house. But look at just those colors, it's just a feast for your eyes. And then last but not least, one of my favorite flowers in the landscape is sunflower. And this is a firecracker dwarf sunflower. And this one's a little different. We're normally seeing just plain yellow sunflowers, but just look at this beautiful chocolate center with the yellow tips and going into almost a bronze. And what's nice about this is a great container plant because it only gets 24 inches tall. So, and depending too on, even in your garden beds, it depends on how big of a back, how big your flowers are in back. It can make a nice row in the center just to kind of add some things. And it's just really easy to grow and just very striking coloration. So, and along with these, as you'll see on the slides, is actually the other varieties that are listed, that they tested in those categories. So some of them might seem a little familiar to you. You can kind of look through those as well and just do a little bit of research on it. So there's a start for you. This is a great way to get a start and get out into the garden and get to the garden stores and pick up your seeds, or get online and get those ordered in. And before you know it, we'll be out in the gardens. Make sure you get your soil tested through the University of Minnesota Soil Testing Lab, and make sure you're getting that soil amended nicely the way you need to. Make sure when you're pulling out your containers to do up your container gardens, make sure they're scrubbed out and good and clean, because you don't want any diseases being carried through. I usually wash mine out with a little bit of bleach and water to make sure they're all nicely clean. Sharpen up those garden tools, get out those garden gloves, pump up the tires on your I have a little garden wagon that I have to pump up the tires on. So I'm getting kind of excited here. So hopefully the weather will warm up and you'll be out there just spreading seeds and spreading joy in your garden. That's it for this episode of What's Growin On, and happy digging.